Number 9. A brutal end. In April 2021, a young woman from Greenwich, Connecticut, was brutally attacked and killed by her boyfriend in their Lower East Side apartment. 23-year-old Sarah Coit was almost decapitated during the violent assault that took place in the early hours of the morning. The motive behind the attack was Sarah's attempt to end their relationship. 33-year-old Raul Barrera, the boyfriend responsible for the crime, confessed to the police, saying that he used a kitchen knife to fatally stab Sarah in their third-floor apartment at 65 Clinton Street. Witnesses recounted hearing Sarah's desperate pleas for her life, as she repeatedly screamed the word no and wanted him to stop. Her voice echoed through the apartment complex, alarming the people who lived there. A witness, 20-year-old Brianna Andelor, was staying in an apartment opposite theirs and shared her account of the sounds. Her friend, a resident of the building, told her that the couple had been having violent arguments for months, but the intensity of their fights was at an all-time high on the night of the murder. Andelor's description of the scene outside the apartment was grim. As Sarah was carried out by the police, officers warned onlookers to not look, as her head was nearly severed and her neck badly wounded. Another witness, 33-year-old Yost Bonner, a visitor staying in a neighboring building, recalled hearing Sarah's desperate cries for help. The distressing sounds persisted for around 20 minutes, and while concerned neighbors tried to find the source of the commotion, they could not find Sarah. They were shouting out questions, asking her where she is or in what apartment, but they eventually had to call emergency services. After the brutal attack, Barrera left Sarah's lifeless body on the floor and fled the scene. He called a relative who told him to surrender to the authorities. Acting on the advice, Barrera turned himself in at the 9th Precinct Station House, later being transferred to the 7th Precinct, which had jurisdiction over the area. During questioning, Barrera claimed that he and Sarah had been arguing about their breakup and stated that she had initially grabbed the knife, forcing him to disarm her. A police source revealed that it was Sarah who had initiated the decision to end the relationship. Despite the efforts of medical professionals, Sarah Coit succumbed to her injuries. She had been rushed to Beth Israel Hospital while still clinging to life, but passed away around 2 hours later. Sarah came from a privileged background, her father being Lind Coit, a Cornell-educated lawyer. The family lives in a $1.4 million home in Greenwich. Raul Barrera was charged with second-degree murder and appeared in court dressed in a gray t-shirt and sweats, maintaining a somber and silent behavior. He was sentenced to spend 25 years with a maximum sentence of life in prison. Number 8. Fight over laundry. In May 2021, in North Portland, Oregon, an argument between brothers escalated into a fatal confrontation, leading to the death of a woman. The shocking events unfolded on a Sunday morning when authorities arrived at the scene of a deadly dispute and took 25-year-old Shane Fennell into custody. While being detained, Fennell made an unsolicited statement, admitting to committing a horrible act. His admission was made while in custody, where he expressed remorse for his actions. The victim, 29-year-old Alexandra Arb Bloodgood, lost her life after being shot in the head by her brother-in-law Fennell in the backyard. Alexandra was married to Fennell's brother Jordan Arb. Jordan informed the police that the argument between him and Fennell initially erupted over laundry and escalated to the point where Fennell threw a potted plant at him. During the incident, Alexander was seated on a chair on the back patio, facing away from Fennell. During an interview with Portland Police Detective Ryan Foote, Jordan stated that Fennell approached Alexandra and shot her at close range in the back of the head using a revolver. As officers were on their way to the residence, responding to a 911 call about a shooting, they got more information that Arb Bloodgood had suffered a gunshot wound to the head and that Fennell was still in the vicinity. Upon arrival, neighbor Jacob Chow informed the police that he had gone downstairs after hearing the sound of a gunshot. He observed Fennell visibly distressed across the street from his porch and approached him to inquire about the situation. Chow said that Fennell was in a rage, flailing his arms and visibly upset. He asked Fennell what had happened, and Fennell confessed to shooting Alex, referring to his brother's wife. When Chow asked where the firearm was, the culprit said that it was on the front lawn of his residence. Chow then spotted a chrome-plated revolver with a brown handle on the front lawn and directed the arriving officers to its location. After their interaction, Fennell told Chow to call 911, which he did. Chow then advised Fennell to sit down on his front yard until the police got there. The murderer complied and stayed in Chow's front yard until officers took him into custody. Fennell was charged with second-degree murder and 1 count of unlawful use of a weapon. He was sentenced to a minimum of 22 years in state prison. Number 7. A threatened wife. In July 2021, in Oklahoma, a woman used an ATV to run over her husband during an argument. 35-year-old Chanel Lewis is now facing second-degree murder charges after killing her husband, Christopher Lewis. According to the authorities, the fight between the couple began over a disagreement about food, but quickly spiraled out of control. The situation took a dark turn when Christopher said he wanted a divorce. In response, Chanel threatened to run him over and end his life. Acting on her words, she allegedly climbed into an ATV and intentionally drove it toward her husband, fatally striking him. Pottawatomie County Under-Sheriff J.T. Palmer addressed the unprecedented nature of the incident, stating that this was the first time that they had encountered a case where someone deliberately used a vehicle to harm another person. He also stated that alcohol seemed to have played a role in the events leading up to the tragedy. Christian Cornett, Christopher's son, witnessed the horrifying incident and revealed that Chanel also tried to target him and his sister with the ATV during the argument. At first, Chanel was charged with manslaughter, but as the investigation progressed, the charge was upgraded to second-degree murder. The decision to increase the charge was based on the evidence and information uncovered during the ongoing inquiry. As of now, she remains in police custody, with her bond set at $30,000. Number 6. The dumb Facebook fight. On December 27, 2011, a heated Facebook argument escalated to the point where a Queens man shot and severely injured a high school basketball star, shattering his dreams of pursuing a career in the sport. According to prosecutors, 23-year-old McHarland Cotier fired 3 shots at 18-year-old Joshua Arrington, a 6'8" senior at Springfield Gardens High School. Because of the attack, Arrington suffered such severe injuries that his right leg had to be amputated. The incident unfolded after Arrington came across a post on Facebook about a female friend who was lamenting about unfaithful partners. Cotier, also a Facebook friend of the woman, responded by claiming that she would never find a good man with her negative attitude. Arrington, defending the woman's honor, got into a heated exchange with Cotier through Facebook messages. The argument escalated to the point where Arrington challenged Cotier to a physical confrontation, inviting him to meet on 185th Street in Hollis, which was nearby. Cotier arrived at the meeting location in a BMW and without warning shot Arrington twice in the stomach and once in the arm. Before the shooting, Cotier even taunted Arrington by sending a Facebook message announcing his arrival outside Arrington's home. Despite the attempted murder, Arrington survived, although the loss of blood necessitated the amputation of his right leg. During the argument, Arrington investigated Cotier's Facebook profile and discovered that they had attended IS 238 together. Approaching Cotier in a friendly manner, Arrington wanted to defuse the tension, recognizing their shared past. But Cotier responded aggressively, asserting that Arrington did not know him. Following the shooting, Cotier fled to Georgia to evade capture. He was arrested by the authorities while hiding out in a Metro extended stay hotel in Marietta, Georgia, surrounded by takeout menus and food containers. As the trial unfolded, a picture of Arrington wearing his school basketball uniform was shown to emphasize that he had been on the verge of receiving college scholarship offers before the incident took place. In defense of Cotier, his lawyer argued that the prosecution failed to produce concrete evidence directly linking his client to the crime. It was pointed out that Cotier's fingerprints were not found on the gun and challenged the absence of any DNA evidence connecting Cotier to the weapon. After agreeing with the prosecution, the judge sentenced Cotier to 25 years in prison. Do you think his sentence should have been longer? Let us know in the comments and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 5. The pandemic stress. In August 2022, in Pennsylvania, a man opened fire on a cigar shop clerk because he refused to wear a mask, furthering the tensions brought about by the pandemic. 35-year-old Adam Zaborowski was a resident of Slatington and was charged with 22 counts in Lehigh County. The charges against Zaborowski were specific, including 7 counts of attempted homicide, 7 counts of attempted first-degree murder of a police officer, 7 counts of aggravated assault, and 1 count of possessing a firearm while being prohibited due to a prior aggravated assault conviction. What's more, separate charges in Northampton County included attempted homicide, 2 counts of aggravated assault, 2 counts of robbery, 2 counts of reckless endangerment, and firearm charges. While an official motive for the shootings has been disclosed, Zaborowski's defense attorney suggested that the stress caused by the COVID-19 pandemic played a role in his client's actions. Zaborowski had lost his job because of the pandemic and recently lost custody of his child, but these factors did not justify his behavior. It all started shortly before noon, when Zaborowski visited Cigars International in Bethlehem Township, Northampton County. Despite both the store's policy and Pennsylvania governor's mask mandates, Zaborowski refused to wear a face mask. The store clerk offered to serve him curbside if he preferred not to wear a mask, but Zaborowski kept arguing that he did not need one, even citing a line from Pennsylvania law. When the store clerk insisted on the face mask requirement, Zaborowski grabbed 2 cigars without paying and fled from the store. The store clerk went after him to get back the stolen items, at which point Zaborowski took out a semi-automatic handgun and fired 2 shots into the air before aiming 1 shot at the clerk. Fortunately, no one was injured among the patrons who were present outside the store during the incident. Zaborowski managed to escape the scene in a blue Dodge Dakota pickup truck before law enforcement could reach him. The next day, authorities were surveying his residence while waiting for the municipal emergency response team to arrive and execute an arrest warrant. But Zaborowski left his home and drove away in his vehicle before the warrant could be served. State and local officials went after him up to an intersection, where he got out of his vehicle and opened fire on them using an AK-47 and a semi-automatic handgun. The police returned fire, striking Zaborowski in the leg and buttocks. After the exchange of gunfire, they provided immediate first aid to Zaborowski, after which he was transported to a local hospital, where he was expected to recover from his injuries before being released to police custody within a few days. Zaborowski was arrested from his hospital bed a few days later, and bail was set at $1 million. Number 4. A quadruple homicide. In March 2021, on a Saturday night, a man shot and killed 4 people inside a house in Indianapolis after a dispute over a stimulus check with his daughter's mother, who had a restraining order against him. 25-year-old Malik Halfacre was arrested the next day after the shooting took place in a multi-unit house on North Randolph Street. He ended up killing 35-year-old Anthony Johnson, 23-year-old Daquan Moore, 7-year-old Eve Moore, and 44-year-old Tomika Brown. One survivor was shot in the back during the incident, and despite her injuries, she managed to give crucial information to the police, leading them to the location of the crime scene at around 8:30 p.m. The survivor obtained a restraining order against Halfacre in 2020 because of repeat incidents of harassment and violence. During an interview with the police, Halfacre admitted that he and his daughter's mother were engaged in an argument over her stimulus check just a little while before the shooting. He confessed to shooting everyone inside the house and then proceeded to take the money as well as his daughter's mother's purse and car before fleeing from the scene. 3 days later, the Deputy Chief of Investigations announced that Halfacre had been charged with 4 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and 1 count of robbery. The final charging decision was yet to be determined by the sheriff's office. After the shooting, there was concern for the safety and whereabouts of 6-year-old Malia Halfacre, the child of Malik Halfacre and the surviving victim. Police got a report stating that the child was missing from the house. But at around 5:30 a.m. a day after the incident, Halfacre's sister contacted the police and informed them that she had the missing child. She revealed that Halfacre came to her home, dropped off the child along with all of the necessary belongings, and left. She also disclosed to investigators that her brother had admitted to killing 4 people and provided them with details about how the tragic event unfolded. Following leads from a witness, law enforcement learned that Halfacre got help from a friend and was hiding at a house on East Ridge Drive, located on the east side of Indianapolis. After numerous hours of trying to persuade him to surrender, including the use of tear gas, a SWAT team entered the premises and discovered Halfacre hiding in the attic. He was taken into custody without incident. As of now, he remains in custody while he awaits his sentence. Number 3. The greatest Star Wars fan. In November 2011, a man with an intense passion for Star Wars took the life of his Thai wife after she destroyed his beloved collection of Star Wars toys. 30-year-old Ricky Latouche had been collecting Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker memorabilia since his childhood. But a dispute started between him and his 28-year-old wife, Pulos, when she damaged his cherished collection. During their heated argument, Latouche suffocated his wife and then fled to his mother's house to confess to his unimaginable act. Later, the lifeless body of the young mother was discovered on their bed in Lee, Greater Manchester, covered with a duvet and pillow. Latouche informed the police that his wife had destroyed his Star Wars collection on purpose, as part of her campaign to make his life miserable. He portrayed himself as a submissive husband who snapped under the threat of his wife leaving him to return to Thailand, her home country. They first met in a bar during Latouche's holiday in Bangkok in 2001. Attracted to her, he married her in 2003 during his 4th visit to Thailand. But it wasn't until 2 years later that she obtained a UK visa. During the trial, it was revealed that Latouche had sought help from a domestic abuse hotline before the tragic murder. He claimed that his wife had assaulted him in the past, once hitting him with a pool cue and even threatening to kill him while he slept, vowing to dismember and consume him. When the police arrived at the scene, Latouche described the events leading to the incident, stating that his wife had repeatedly threatened to leave him, which caused their argument. He expressed that he only remembers getting off of her after he had choked her to death. A post-mortem examination determined that Pulos' cause of death was asphyxiation, confirming Latouche's horrifying actions. While he admitted to manslaughter, the jury concluded that his actions constituted murder. After the trial, Latouche was found guilty of murder by a jury, and he received a life sentence with a minimum term of 12 years. Number 2. An angry Walmart customer. In September 2021, early in the morning, a middle-aged man was viciously attacked in a Walmart with a machete after a heated argument with another customer. The police received a distress call and immediately got to the Walmart located on Harrison Avenue just before 10:30 a.m. Upon arrival, they discovered the 43-year-old victim, a resident of Kearney, with a deep cut to the back of his head. By that point, the suspect had already fled the scene. The injured victim was rushed to the hospital for urgent medical attention and was later released after he made his recovery. According to the authorities, the victim and the suspect were both customers at the store's electronics department. They were standing in line, maintaining their appropriate physical distance as mandated by COVID-19 guidelines. They did not look like they were shopping together or had any prior connection. The exact cause that sparked the argument is still unknown. During the argument, a third customer tried to intervene and defuse the situation. But the suspect suddenly took out a machete concealed beneath his clothing and struck the victim in the back of his head. The impact of the attack was so severe that witnesses compared the sound to that of a gunshot. People scrambled, desperately trying to flee and avoid harm. An eyewitness recounted the terrifying scene, mentioning that amidst the commotion, he observed a woman being dragged away in an attempt to escape harm's way. After investigation, a 29-year-old Newmark man was charged with attempted murder, weapons offenses, and aggravated assault, and he was immediately taken into custody. Number 1. The gas station stabbing. On July 4, 2023 in the afternoon, a man lost his life after being stabbed following an argument. The authorities got a distress call about a stabbing incident just before 2:30 p.m. Upon their arrival at the gas station situated on US Highway 40 near Independence, they found a man inside the establishment who had suffered severe bodily injuries. Paramedics who quickly arrived at the scene declared the 42-year-old man dead. At first, the suspect responsible for the stabbing fled the scene, creating an urgent need for law enforcement to track down the attacker. But later in the day, detectives took a person of interest into custody. While the police did not immediately release the names of the victim or the suspect involved, grieving relatives who had gathered at the gas station later identified the victim as John Roan Jr. Jesus Aguilar, an eyewitness to the fight, recounted that the argument took place outdoors, involving a white man and a black man. As it turned out, racial slurs were repeatedly used during the argument, indicating a potentially racially charged aspect of the incident. Moments after the heated exchange, Roan entered the gas station, visibly injured from multiple stab wounds. As news of the stabbing spread, bystanders like Logan Todd rushed to help. Todd, equipped with the knowledge of CPR, entered the gas station to find Roan bleeding from multiple stab wounds near his heart. He immediately initiated chest compressions in an attempt to revive him. Todd remembered that there were around 7 people present in the gas station during his resuscitation efforts. Todd recalled that upon taking Roan's pulse, he recognized the absence of vital signs, indicating that Roan had already passed away before medical help arrived. Regarding the potential motive behind the crime, the police declined to comment on whether racial animosity played a role. As of now, the investigation into the matter is ongoing, and so far, no arrest has been made.
Number 8. Blake Liol. A man from West Hollywood was handed a life sentence behind bars without the possibility of parole for killing his girlfriend in May 2016. When the victim's body was discovered, it had been drained of all blood, and a prosecutor in the case claimed that the gruesome crime scene resembled a graphic novel that the murderer had actually co-written. After handing down 37-year-old Blake Liol's sentencing, Judge Marky Wyndham cited the killer's profound brutality. It only took about 90 minutes of deliberation for jurors at the Airport Branch Courthouse in LA to find the defendant guilty of murder, aggravated mayhem, and torture. According to Deputy District Attorney Tanaz Makayev, Liol's girlfriend, 30-year-old Iana Kasayan, was alive for most of the torture that took place during the long attack. The incident happened at the apartment the two shared, and the victim's body was found in the blood-spattered bedroom after Iana's mom called the police to report that she couldn't get in touch with her daughter. Unfortunately, the murder happened 3 weeks after Iana gave birth to the couple's first child, and when the woman's body was discovered, it was hidden beneath a Mickey Mouse blanket, the same one that was used in their newborn's nursery. Luckily, the child had been in the care of Iana's mother Olga at the time. Iana seemed to have been cleaned thoroughly and was missing the entire right side of her face as well as her scalp, and various pieces of her skin were found in the room. The prosecutor noted that part of the victim's scalp had been turned inside out, and that an ear was discovered in a trash can at the bottom of a chute just outside the complex. Liol was described as a graphic novelist and screenwriter who was so into his work that he acted out one of his scenes in real life. When police arrived, he barricaded himself in the bedroom and only came out when his accountant showed up. He pleaded not guilty to the charges, but it didn't matter in the end. Liol is currently serving time at the California Correctional Institution. Number 7. Jose Raphael Salano Landiata. A 27-year-old mother from Northern California was the victim of a horrific beheading that happened in September 2022. Sadly, Karina Castro, who worked as a DoorDash delivery driver, left her 2 young daughters behind, according to a local news station KGO-TV, who reported the incident. The woman's youngest child was fathered by the man who was arrested for her murder, 33-year-old Jose Raphael Solano Landiata. The victim's father, Marty, said that he begged Karina not to talk to Jose and to break up with him, but it seemed like the more he did, the more she'd see him. Jose had been violent with her on more than one occasion, but it had never gone this far. Even though Karina took out a restraining order against him in April, her family claimed that she continued to speak with him. The victim's body was found by deputies from the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office in San Carlos, and based on reports from the news station, Karina's head had been cut off with a samurai sword. Jose was taken into custody after returning to the scene of the crime. Danielle Gannon, Karina's grandma, told KGO-TV that the killer had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and was on medication during the murder. Unfortunately, the man tried to use this as an excuse for his behavior, even though he decided to drink heavily while on his meds, something he was told multiple times not to do. The case is ongoing, but Jose has been charged with Karina's murder. He also faces multiple enhancements, including great bodily injury, using a deadly weapon, and a prior felony conviction. But at the moment, his punishment is undecided. Number 6. Sanchez Williams. In October 2010, a 21-year-old woman was beaten to death at her home in Nottingham after suffering years of abuse from her baby daddy. According to a report from Daily Mail, the police missed 11 opportunities to save Casey Brittle's life, and sadly, the violent murder was witnessed by the couple's 2-year-old child, who walked into the room where Sanchez Williams, the girl's father, was carrying out the attack. For 2 hours after, she stayed with her mom, who was unconscious, until authorities got to the scene. Sanchez was known for having a violent and lengthy criminal record, but the police failed to take even the most basic of actions to protect Casey. Officers with the Nottinghamshire Police were criticized for failing to save the woman's life. Authorities were called 11 times by Casey and by witnesses or neighbors to report threats or attacks that happened between the estranged mother and father between September 2008 to August 2010. But according to an independent report, the police never questioned why she complained of domestic violence, and they refused to help her. Casey was apparently so scared of her ex-boyfriend that she played down the attacks and was reluctant to press charges against him. As a result, Williams was never formally charged with a criminal offense. Police were called to Casey's home after one of her neighbors reported hearing her daughter yelling, "I want my mummy," as Williams brutally attacked her. When her body was discovered by first responders, she was rushed to the hospital, where she died thanks to head injuries, which were caused after being kicked, punched, and stamped on. As a result of his horrific actions, Williams was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 15 years after confessing to the brutal murder. Number 5. Kenneth Bellamy. In early 2020, a Florida man that had recently bonded out of jail on a manslaughter charge killed his girlfriend and her lover after finding the two of them having sex in his home. According to the Polk County Sheriff's Office, 50-year-old Kenneth Bellamy was released from the Osceola County Jail after serving a year for failing to appear in court for a DUI manslaughter charge. But once he got out, he realized that his girlfriend, who wasn't named, had moved another man into his house while he was behind bars. Kenneth initially tried to calm himself down by visiting his mom in Miami, but when he couldn't take a bus ride due to the COVID-19 virus, his rage only increased. Then, just 3 days after being released, he went home and found his girlfriend and another man having intercourse. In response, he used a knife and a hammer to murder them both. Afterward, Kenneth started a fire in the bedroom. With smoke billowing out of the house, several people called 911, alerting officers to the bloody scene. Kenneth was charged with first-degree murder, 1 count of arson, 1 count of attempted felony murder, and tampering with evidence. He was later booked into the Polk County Jail. Unfortunately, his sentencing is unclear. And now for number 4. But first, it's time for some shout-outs. We wanted to give a big thank you to Canadian Girl 80 and Ricky Roberts for watching and supporting this channel. We really appreciate your feedback. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe to join the Badger fam. Number 4. Leroy Fowler. A retired teacher from Massachusetts was charged with murder in late 2022 after accusations of her poisoning her younger boyfriend's coffee shakes with toxic antifreeze were made. 64-year-old Judy Church of Salisbury made a brief appearance in court 1 day after getting arrested on suspicion of killing her lover, 55-year-old Leroy Fowler. According to NBC Boston, on November 11th, after 8 p.m., Judy called 911 to report Leroy was experiencing medical distress. She explained that the man must have ingested something before saying he had a bloody nose and was pulling the bedroom apart. In order to try and save his life, Leroy was transferred to 3 different hospitals. It was eventually determined by doctors that his kidneys were failing and that antifreeze poisoning was the most likely cause. This diagnosis prompted Leroy's family to contact law enforcement. Unfortunately, though, Leroy took his last breath on November 13th, leading to a full-fledged investigation. Detectives later found unidentified containers around Judy's apartment while searching through surveillance footage, believed to have held the toxic substance. And although the woman's motives aren't entirely clear, Leroy was known to go back and forth between Judy and another girlfriend, possibly sending her into a jealous rage. In the end, Judy was arrested on suspicion of murder and was denied a chance at bail. And although she hasn't gotten her sentence yet, it's likely she'll remain behind bars for the rest of her miserable life. Number 3. Jared Reebok. On Christmas Day 2014, a man from Fishersburg, Indiana was accused of trying to kill his unborn child by slipping his pregnant girlfriend a poison-spiked drink. 25-year-old Jared Reebok mixed an herbal substance into a beverage he made for his partner, Kayla Fry, after researching what would kill the unborn baby's life. He allegedly visited an herbal supplement store near his house and bought a bottle of clary sage since he believed it would cause a miscarriage. According to detectives, he then slipped some of it into a drink for Kayla, who luckily refused it because it had a strange smell. Based on reports from local news outlet WISH-TV, Kayla then looked through Jared's phone and realized that he'd recently searched for miscarriage-inducing chemicals online. She called the police, who arrested Jared and charged him with attempted feticide, which means that he attempted to kill an unborn child. He apparently didn't deny the charges and confessed to the crime when questioned by the police. Jared pled guilty to the level 3 felony in 2015, but instead of jail time, he was given the opportunity to complete a mental health court program by Judge Thomas Newman Jr. He finished the 18-month program, and under the terms of his agreement, the case was closed and the charge was taken off his record. This decision likely came as a shock to Kayla and her family, since after all, he did try to end the life of an unborn child that she wanted, even if it was determined afterward that clary sage is actually incapable of causing a miscarriage. Number 2. John Pulos. In early 2023, the dismembered body of a female DJ was discovered stuffed in a suitcase in Bogotá, Colombia. Valentina Tres Palacios' boyfriend, 35-year-old John Pulos, was arrested at an airport in a neighboring country after the DJ was found in a blue bag by a homeless person. The 23-year-old woman had been strangled to death before being dismembered and placed in the dumped suitcase. The woman's American boyfriend was immediately labeled as the main suspect in her death. Afterward, Pulos allegedly fled the country to Panama, where he was arrested while attempting to board a flight to Istanbul, Turkey. The suspect was taken into custody on January 24th. He's now waiting to be extradited to Colombia in order to face femicide charges, which is a specific criminal offense in the country. The couple had been dating for about 8 months before Tres Palacios' murder, which took place on January 22nd. And just days before her death, she'd moved into a rented home with Pulos, with plans to eventually get married. But Pulos became obsessed with the woman, according to her mother, and he grew jealous of her many suitors since she was so beautiful. And while the investigation is ongoing, the amount of evidence pointing to Pulos being responsible for Tres Palacios' death is beyond damning. But he has yet to be sentenced for the crime. Number 1. Shmuel LaVine. After allegedly choking and beating his girlfriend up, a man from New York threw his lover out of her 6th-floor apartment in 2020, all because he thought she was cheating on him. The mangled body of 37-year-old Danielle Morano was discovered by police at the base of her apartment building in Queens. Her boyfriend, 34-year-old Shmuel LaVine, was arrested hours later when it was determined that she died after the couple got into a fight when LaVine tried to search Morano's phone for evidence of an affair. Initially, authorities believed Morano had ended her own life by simply jumping to her death. But they concluded that wasn't the case when they realized her injuries weren't consistent with the fall. Police were called to the complex on October 26th at around 2:40 p.m., where they found the woman lying several floors beneath her window with fatal wounds. She was rushed to Jamaica Hospital, where she passed away only 6 hours later. Investigators closed in on Morano's jealous lover, who's 220 pounds and stands over 6 feet tall, when hospital workers told officers that some of her injuries weren't caused by a fall. When questioned about the incident, LaVine apparently made a full confession. He claimed Morano admitted to cheating on him, and when he tried to search through her phone, she refused to give it to him, leading to the violent altercation and her death. Morano's untimely demise was ruled a homicide, and LaVine was charged with second-degree murder. He's currently being held in jail without bail, and if convicted, he'll face up to 25 years behind bars. If you ask us, he should stay there for life. Even if someone cheats on you, there's no justification for this kind of brutal murder.
Number 10. The Machete Chaos. Around 4 a.m. one day in February 2018, a woman was attacked by her boyfriend with a machete. 31-year-old Sarah Wetham from Manchester, UK, was sleeping peacefully when 40-year-old Aaron Condor assaulted her with the sharp weapon, inflicting injuries over her entire body, including a cracked skull. She was able to escape only when he turned the blade on himself. She told reporters that she thought Condor was the man of her dreams at first, but he quickly became very possessive and even hated it when she spent time with her dying father. The two first met on a night out with friends in August 2016 and moved in together only a few months later. Condor seemed like a good father to his two kids from a past relationship, according to Wetham, but their connection started to deteriorate when Condor became extremely manipulative. He was irritated when Wetham talked to other men and went out with other guys when he wasn't there. Wetham's father became terminally ill back in 2017, and she resigned from her job to take care of him. Condor, on the other hand, grew envious and angry, resulting in fights that sometimes turned physical. During one episode, he even grabbed Sarah by the hair. Things started getting really messed up in February 2018 when he verbally abused her, called her a slut, and claimed that he was an alpha male. Sarah immediately knew the relationship was over and planned to leave him the next day. She went to bed with her clothes on, but around 4 a.m., Condor attacked her with the machete. He accused her of sending a text message about another boyfriend, when in reality, the message was sent by one of her friends. Despite her attempts to explain what really happened, Condor started stabbing her, causing critical injuries. He wrapped himself around her, but Sarah managed to get free from her attacker's grip and ran away. Condor was charged with attempted murder for the incident. He eventually pled guilty to injuring with purpose and was sentenced to over 12 years in jail. Number 9. The Terrible Revenge. On July 3rd, 2015, after 8 p.m., a woman was stabbed to death after breaking up with her boyfriend. 22-year-old Jordan Taylor was accused of viciously beating and killing 21-year-old Laura Davies in Pitsea, Essex, where the woman used to work. According to the prosecution, Taylor was suddenly overcome with rage after Davies ended their relationship. Apparently, he followed her through her workplace and repeatedly stabbed her in a frantic attack. She was wounded 18 times in her face, 25 times in the arms, 15 times in the chest, 14 times in the legs, 8 times in her back, and 3 times on the back of her head, according to court evidence. The prosecution described this in 2 words: terrible revenge. Taylor is said to have crouched over the woman's body, stabbing her while she was screaming for him to get off. According to reports, his attack was so brutal that the knife taken from the crime scene became bent at a 45-degree angle after the assault. At one point, the action drew to a halt, and a man appeared kneeling over Davies' body. Later, the man, who was identified as Taylor by the prosecution, was seen carrying Davies' body away. In her place, the murderer put a large green bucket on her to cover up the blood. She was rushed to the hospital, but still passed away at 10:27 p.m. after giving into her wounds. Jordan Taylor was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 23 years in jail on a first-degree murder charge. Number 8. Shot too soon. On July 31st, 2022, a young man was shot and killed by his ex-girlfriend's father after he tried to break into their home. The incident was caught on a Ring doorbell video camera. The footage showed 2 people, Stacey Duckrow and her daughter Alison Duckrow, going toward their front door. A vehicle then pulled into the driveway behind them as they went inside the house. Alison's ex-boyfriend, 22-year-old James Rail, came up to the front door not long after. Rael's ex-girlfriend told police that the relationship ended a year and a half before that night and that her ex tried to contact her by voicemail the previous night. The footage then shows Rael attempting to open the door while being shouted at by the people inside. Despite Stacy telling him that her daughter doesn't want to talk, he persisted. He started to slam his shoulder into the door to break it down, and despite their efforts to stop him, the man didn't respond and continued with his attack. The ex-girlfriend immediately dialed 911 for help. During all the chaos, Allison's dad, 52-year-old Mitch Duckrow, threatened Rael with a gun. When Mitch fired 3 rounds toward him, Rael had already managed to break open the door and was making his way back down the driveway. He ended up collapsing around the corner of the garage and died from 3 bullet wounds. An autopsy revealed that he was hit in the left and right shoulders and fatally in the back. The Shelby County Sheriff's Office and the Sydney Police Department investigated the event, which revealed that the door's deadbolt was still secured, but the lock casing was broken. This meant that Rael had successfully broken in. 3 bullet holes were found in the door's glass window, as well as all 3 hollow point 9mm cartridges, and the weapon used was still inside the house, which meant he had shot before the assailant had even entered. On August 4th, a jury decided not to charge Mitch with murder, since he attacked out of self-defense and concern for his family. Number 7. No moving on. On October 18th, 2020, a man shot at his ex-girlfriend through a car window after he saw her with her new man. The shooting happened on the Northwest Freeway near Spring Cypress, while 24-year-old Della Garza was traveling with her current boyfriend. According to the unnamed man's account, the ex-boyfriend, 21-year-old Man Austin Hayes, followed them and shot through the back window, hitting the woman right in the head. The boyfriend then rushed her to an ER, where she was later flown to Memorial Hermann, but died after giving in to her injuries. The incident was initially thought to be an act of road rage, since photos showed emergency crews and ambulances on the scene, with the area roped off and the victim getting medical attention. When authorities got to the scene, Man had already driven away, abandoning his car in a nearby parking lot. A manhunt was launched, but the suspect turned himself in a few days later. According to reports, the judge set Man's bail at $250,000 and imposed several restrictions, including wearing a GPS monitor, giving up his passport, and having no contact with the victim's family or her new boyfriend. The judge also enforced a curfew from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. The bail was set high since the judge realized the suspect was on probation for a separate aggravated assault and a drug-related charge from back in March 2020. When he was arrested, Man was initially charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, but this charge was upgraded when Garza died from her injuries. Hayes was sentenced to life in Harris County Jail on a first-degree murder charge. Number 6. End of the story. On May 17th, 2020, a man vanished out of thin air, only for a crime scene to be later discovered in his apartment. There was no sign of life coming from 40-year-old Rosalino Gutierrez Jr. 2 days after his disappearance in Kenosha, Wisconsin, his close friend Miss Beecham visited his home after failing to get in contact with him. She saw that the patio door was open and an area rug was missing, and there was blood on the floor, furniture, and ceiling. Suspecting that something was wrong, she called the police, who carried out a welfare check, and investigators discovered that the apartment had traces of a struggle and large amounts of blood. Although the victim's body was not found, authorities believed he was dead thanks to the overwhelming amount of blood found in the home. The accused killer, 42-year-old Zachariah Anderson, apparently went to Gutierrez's apartment in Wood Creek and used blunt force to kill him. The motive was jealousy over his relationship with Anderson's former lover. The killer disposed of the victim's body afterward, and the next day he was spotted on surveillance footage at a Walmart buying garbage bags, latex gloves, bleach wipes, and for some reason, cans of sardines. Investigators became suspicious when his ex-partner revealed that she thought he was tracking her movements. When they found the dead body of Gutierrez, there were burn pits at both Anderson's home and his farm. Among the ashes, they found the remains of a bleach bottle and the suspect's clothes. Anderson's trial was moved forward after the investigators found Gutierrez's DNA in his work van, with evidence of bleach scrubbing done on the interior and parts of the vehicle's carpet missing. 2 cans of sardines were also found under his passenger seat. Anderson pleaded not guilty to all of the charges and maintained his innocence throughout the trial, which only lasted a month. He was officially arrested and charged with stalking back in May 2020, and later in December of that same year, he was charged with homicide and hiding a corpse. Anderson's trial in Kenosha County concluded with the jury finding him guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, hiding a corpse, and stalking. Anderson received a life sentence in prison. Have you ever had a jealous ex? What was it like? Let us know in the comments down below, and be sure to subscribe to the channel while you're down there. Number 5. The Mysterious Argument. On August 4th, 2018, a teenage girl went missing, only for her dead body to be found a month later in the desert. 19-year-old Kira Bergman disappeared after an argument with her ex-boyfriend, 23-year-old John Christopher Clark, who later claimed that she stormed out of her apartment and he didn't see her after that. But mountain bikers found her on September 3rd with her body dumped in the desert. Prosecutors revealed that Kira was wearing the same Mission Bay sweatshirt she was last seen in, which was proof that she likely didn't make it far from the time she was last seen leaving her workplace. While Clark eventually admitted to picking her up that day, he denied killing her. Prosecutors claimed that Kira and John's phones only worked when they were connected to Wi-Fi. They said that even though Kira was missing, her phone was still linked to Wi-Fi at her apartment and at John's friend's Alonzo's house, where he was staying. They say that on August 7th, both John and Kira's phones were connected to Alonzo's IP address, which was troubling since no one had seen Kira around that time. On the other hand, the defense claimed that there was insufficient or no physical evidence to prove that John actually murdered Kira. They added that no cause of death was officially determined and no gunshot, stab wounds, or blunt force trauma was discovered on Kira's body. What's more, the defense attorney said that no incriminating material was found in John's car or at the couple's apartment. Prosecutors accused John of second-degree murder of his ex-girlfriend, since according to them, he was pretending to be her by sending text messages from her cell phone. During the closing remarks in court, prosecutors focused on the gaps between Clark's statements and the phone records. In the end, there wasn't enough evidence to back the prosecution's claims. Nothing connected him to the crime, so Clark was found not guilty of second-degree murder and tampering with physical evidence in Bergman's death. Do you think the authorities should have looked deeper into this case to find more evidence? Number 4. The Last Escape. On January 26, 2022, a young woman went missing in Antioch, California. Only her phone case was found after investigations were carried out. According to her parents, 24-year-old Alexis Gabe lived with them, and when she failed to come home one night on January 27th, they got worried. They contacted her ex-boyfriend, who told them that she had visited him the night before and left around 9 p.m. The Gabes put together a search team, and her abandoned car with the key still in the ignition was discovered in Oakley that same day, only 5 minutes away from Alexis's home, but she was nowhere in sight. The city of Oakley said on May 12th that the Oakley police carried out a search warrant at a home on Bentry Way in Antioch related to Gabe's disappearance. The Post said that investigators were looking into whether she was met with foul play at that location, since it was where she was last seen alive. Later on, it was confirmed by the Oakley Police Department that the house belonged to 27-year-old Marshall Curtis Jones, the victim's ex. On May 13th, investigators found a crucial piece of evidence: Gabe's cell phone case. Detective Tyler Horn said in May that they were looking into persons of interest, but would not disclose their names until more information was found. After investigations, Alexis was believed to be a victim of homicide. An arrest warrant was issued for her ex-boyfriend Jones, whom they thought killed the young woman at his home in Antioch. The police found the cell phone case with Jones's DNA near his home. What's more, GPS tracking in Alexa's car as well as surveillance footage showed a direct route from Jones's house to where her car was abandoned. The suspect left California for Washington within days of the woman's disappearance, since he had a small network of family over there. Officials issued an arrest warrant for Jones on June 1st, and when they tried to arrest him at a Seattle home, he charged toward the officers with a knife. He was charged with the killing of Alexis Gabe, but was slain in Washington by members of the Pacific Northwest Violent Offenders Task Force during the attempt to capture him. Number 3. Friends No More. On August 30th, 2015, a young woman was lured into a hike where her ex-boyfriend shot her before shoving her dead body off a cliff. When 18-year-old Jolie Callan first met 20-year-old Lauren Daniel Banner, it was clear that he was possessive and wanted Callan to spend time with only him and his friends. He became increasingly jealous as the time went on, and even though Callan tried to break up with him before, he always threatened to take his life every time she tried to leave. Eventually, she succeeded in ending their relationship, but just a few months later, he contacted her and asked if she would go on a hike with him as friends. She agreed, and even joked about it with another friend, texting her and telling her that if something happened, she was with her ex. Tragically, the hike proved to be fatal. The two went out with Callan's dog Kibba at Pinhotty Trail in Alabama's Chia State Park. Banner documented the day's events on his Instagram with 3 pictures of his ex, and the final one taken minutes before he shot her twice with a .22 bear claw. Banner shot his ex in the back of her head with the first bullet, and when she fell down, he shot her once again in between the eyes. He then pushed her off a 40-foot cliff. Banner then called 911 and confessed to the murder, saying he wanted to turn himself in for killing his ex-girlfriend. He was arrested and charged shortly after the victim's body was discovered. He pleaded not guilty at his trial in November 2015, claiming that he and Callan had a death pact that he couldn't follow through after killing her. His lawyers contended that since he had Asperger's, he should be granted juvenile offender status, which meant he would be sentenced to no more than 3 years in jail, regardless of the severity of the offense. He was awarded this status, but he pleaded guilty to murder 2 years later in 2017. Despite his lawyers' requests for mercy based on Banner's mental instability, the judge condemned him as an adult and gave him 52 years in prison. Number 2. No love, only greed. In December 2019, a man was discovered dead 3 years after going missing, and his ex-boyfriend was responsible. Montgomery County District Attorney's Office in Pennsylvania says that 22-year-old Rashid Young's body was identified through dental records after his family had been searching for him since he went missing. They said Young had been stabbed to death and his remains were found on September 30th, 2019 at Auberry Arboretum in Philadelphia. Police detained Young's ex, 20-year-old Keshawn Sheffield, whom they said took the man's phone and money and pretended like he was still alive. The investigation started 2 weeks after Young's family hired a private investigator who launched a deeper investigation into the case. Authorities revealed that Young and Sheffield had been in a romantic relationship for about 2 years before Young went missing, based on cell phone records and a confidential informant who was apparently a former lover of Sheffield. According to police, Keshawn fatally stabbed Rashid at his apartment on August 19, 2019. Police officers were called to the scene on the same day after water was reported coming out of it. The apartment was flooded and ransacked, with holes all over the walls, broken doors, and scattered trash. In a later investigation, it was discovered that Sheffield sought help from another former lover to dig a hole at the Arboretum and dispose of Young's body there. To hide the fact that Young had been killed, Sheffield reportedly used the man's phone and social media accounts to speak with his family while draining his bank account. Sheffield faced multiple charges, including first-degree murder, third-degree murder, theft, receiving stolen property, and fraud. He was given a mandatory sentence of life in prison. Number 1. The ultimate standoff. In March 2023, around 3 a.m., a man shot and killed his girlfriend after threatening to shoot the residents of a home. According to police and witnesses, a 48-year-old Brooklyn man, Peter Hibbert, allegedly killed his 49-year-old girlfriend, Jacqueline Wilson, and even threatened her daughter by saying that he shot her mom, which meant he could shoot the rest of the people in the house too. The incident happened on a Sunday, and the man was believed to have shot his ex multiple times before barricading himself in the home's crawl space for 2 hours during a standoff with SWAT teams. He was later taken in by police officers. A neighbor reported seeing the authorities with their guns aimed at the building and was worried about getting caught up in the crossfire. The witness also reached out to the husband of the victim's daughter after seeing the commotion, but he only responded by saying that he would call him back and mentioned that they had locked themselves in the bedroom with the baby in order to protect themselves. Peter Hibbert allegedly shot at the door twice, but the son-in-law of the victim on the other side was not hit. In response to a 911 call, police went to the home on East 96th Street around 2:58 a.m. They found the victim Wilson with gunshot wounds to her head, torso, and leg. They also located Hibbert in the basement of the building, along with a gun in the victim's bedroom that was used in the shooting, and he had a cut on his arm that was later treated at Kings County Hospital. Hibbert is believed to have been the victim's boyfriend of 2.5 years, according to witnesses. The neighbor shared that the man was dependent on the victim, since she bought him a car and took care of the household, while he followed her around like a puppy and spoke very little. Hibbert was taken into custody, and as of now, he awaits trial. In court, Judge Simeon Haniff ordered that Hibbert be held without bail until his next hearing, since he faces charges of murder, attempted murder, and weapon possession. While a motive is not entirely clear, it's possible that Wilson tried to break up with the man, causing the violent response. Thanks for watching. Which one of these ex-boyfriend crimes make you never want to date again? Tell us in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time on The Bad Badger.